All right, Cyber Traders, welcome on back here this Thursday afternoon, October 27th, shortly after 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Welcome on back here for our afternoon meeting. Great to see Michael, who's picking up some money just earlier on Shopify. Great to see Warren and Mark S., who also had a really nice day on Shopify as well. A few of us did pretty nicely on that stock, actually. Great to see Chuck, Andre, Leda, Gene, all of us of which could hear me loud and clear. That's nice to see. Great to see all of us back on social media, Facebook Live, and YouTube. So, folks, right now the markets are squeezing down, clear lower high pattern and making the drop off at least back down to the low of the day. We'll look to see if we break lower. And if we do break lower, is it just going to be a little head fake, or is it going to look to begin to really drop off a lot more? What I mean by that is if you see on my 5-minute chart here, the SPY, what I'll even try and do is look to do a little mini trend line right off the lows here. You could see that pretty evidently so far throughout the day. And that should be some support for right now. So even if it breaks below that trend line and breaks a bit lower, is it a real break or is it a false break? And then it snips back up through that level and then it runs back up. That's what you would hope to see, at least for all of us here that are long. I'll tell you what, I don't have my notepad in front of me. That's not good. All right, so I'll tell you what, we ended up doing pretty good, at least from the morning, at least, before things slowed down. Things dropped off for right now, but things that slowed down a little bit. If you're following some of the more expensive name brand mega cap stocks, like, of course, Meta, down still over 24%, dropping off right now. Apple, that recently ended up breaking below support off of 145 and has been dropping off. We were calling that out earlier. So, you're following a couple of those, but at least across the early afternoon, early to mid-afternoon, it's been kind of slow, kind of quiet. So, here's Shopify, of course. That leads me to this here on the screen, up over 17.5% right now. Ended up making a beautiful pop from earlier this morning. This was quote unquote on our list. I don't think Fausto ended up actually posting it, but we were all over this trade beginning from pre-market, myself and one of our students, Chuck. And then from that point, it took off right away. Now, here's the issue on this stock for me. I ended up picking this up from the VWAP as a day trade, but more so heading into the late morning, early afternoon. When it came down to test it for the second time, I missed it off the initial pullback down to the VWAP. It made a perfect bounce 2 separate times, but the first time here would have been prime, ideal for this to be a swing trade opportunity. So even with the markets dropping off a little bit right now, I mean, Shopify coming off of great earnings isn't really, showing as much weakness. It's not popping, mind you, but it's been holding strong. So with the news that came out, we were just talking about this even from yesterday in the phase 2 stock course, our day trading class, that is, with the stock that ended up dropping off as much as Shopify did over, the amount of time that it did. Like, nope, let's go back more. Yeah, right around there, I guess. I mean, this is before they did the split, right? They weren't originally 160 plus out. They were much more than that technically over time. Then they ended up doing the split, but either way, they dropped off quite a bit from high to low at that point. So for a stock that has dropped off as much as it does, you're looking for a fractional recovery. So you're not looking for a full dead cat bounce, but this could be a great swing trade opportunity, and perhaps could still be a great swing trade opportunity over time, maybe end of this week or beginning of next. Should it make one more dip and pullback? But from here, I was like really itching for that as a swing trade, and I kind of just moved on from it at first, and then I looked back a little too late after it had bounced off the VWAP, and I felt like I was chasing it. So I got my day trade. It led to a nice trade on the day trade here. I wouldn't have been as keen to hold on as a swing trade from above 33 as I would be from above 32. You have a little more leeway there, a little bit more cushion room. But now getting back to this as a day trade, well, if anything, it's building a Fausto flag, right? Holding the top really well, roughly off that 34.60, building higher lows across the way through. I mean, if I put this into a 15-minute chart, perhaps, maybe even more, maybe like a 60-minute chart, 30-minute chart, you could see the higher lows, the top building pretty nicely. It looks probably best even on a 60-minute. So with that, Shopify, I'll put on our main list at least to begin. Name brand stock, but trades really good liquidity. Otherwise more within our price range now. Maybe over time it'll fall out of our price range, get too expensive. But right now it looks pretty strong on the way up here. All right, so I'll tell you. Otherwise, a couple of other stocks making some smaller pops, but not off the best volume. We'll just go from top to bottom. We'll probably find those stocks as we go through. But for any of the other bigger movers that pop from the morning, we'll look to recap them. Just as we go. So HTCR is one of them. Ended up having like more of a low volume pop at first, to where it got halted. It reopened up. Now, let me just do a little playing around here right now. I got a little time. Got a coaching call coming up at 3 o'clock with one of our students, but not a formal group class at least. So we can take a little time. I don't need to be as prepped. So 220 for right now. That was a key level coming off the halt. That was the opening halt print. Broke above it, head fake. Once it came back down below it, even as it comes back down to it, you're like, that's not a good sign. You want to see it explode off that level and make the true higher high and run. So once it pulls back under that level, it's a wrap. Game over. I mean, it made like probably a scalp little bounce, but that's not what we looked for really at that point. So even afterwards, ended up making another run back up, a true false breakout where it broke out above it again and pulled back. Yeah, so right now this HTCR looks to be finished up with it, at least. I shouldn't have even looked at this one. User, it's a buyout, right? AGFS ended up making a nice move from earlier this morning. So probably our best play from pre-market that we had on our pre-market watch list. And then into the open, ended up making a nice little pop afterwards too. So ended up going from like 240, broke back above 250 pretty quickly, and then ended up taking off up towards just about 279, 280 that is. Yeah, 280. So, hey, for right now, it still seems to be kind of near said highs. It's still showing a little strength, but, if anything, it looks like a rounded top, looks like lower highs of late. So, maybe I'll come back to this stock at the very end. If it ends up showing more life here, then I'll put it on our list if it could maybe show a little volume on the bid coming in if it pushes up a few more pennies. All right, we'll keep it going here, folks. MCLD, pop and drop. Pop and drop. 2 in a row there. Talk about a pop and drop. Geez. So View, I forgot about the drop off on this trade. End up having a huge run from the morning. So if anything, let me just zoom in on this chart. I mean, the drop off makes the run up look like tiny. But really, from the morning, the run up that we had on this stock was beautiful. From like 120 all the way up to 160 at first, then ended up breaking higher and ran up towards just about 2. So this was pretty much our trade of the day. This and the AGFS from the pre-market. But, and this is the big but here, right? Ultimately, on any stock that we call out inside our live trading room, unless other specified otherwise, it's a day trade, right? And I say that in relation to a swing trade, but with a day trade, we're not holding on throughout the day. We're not scalping. We don't look to scalp necessarily either, but we at least follow the stock. And once we happen to see a decline in the volume traded, and especially for as much as much of a run up as a stock like View makes, you got to wonder anyway. From 125 up to near 2. All right, well, at what point does this begin to pull back? Well, you'd normally look for a false breakout over 2, pop and drop from 2, then the pullback. But let's see if any news came out on this stock. That was a crazy drop off on this View trade. So, with saying that, I mean, you don't really anticipate news to come out midday like this, if there was. All right, let's see. I'll tell you on Benzinga Pro right now. I'm looking up the news on this stock, looking at the drop off that it had. It got halted off a circuit breaker, volatility halt like 2 times, but I don't see any news. Now, we ended up having a stock, I think it was AVCT. I could be wrong. It could be another stock that we had traded from the past week or so. But stock ended up making a big run, and then just one day ended up coming out with news and getting smashed. It could have been a different trade. Maybe just shoot from the hip here. AGFY. maybe this could be it. One of the stocks that we had traded this past week, but midday, very similar to the type of drop off you just had there on the view. I mean, you normally don't expect that, right? But otherwise, for as much of a run that this stock like View makes, you got to expect at some point for it to begin to pull back, and not to say make this drop off, but over time, eventually, likely get back down to this price here now. A slower decline. All right, let's see what else we got here. Otherwise, folks, Shopify back down to 34. That's been a really strong level throughout the day today. A lot of big buying, I'm led to believe, off that 34, and from other prices too. But 34 is really strong from the late morning. All right, no real familiar names otherwise on the gainers side, or at least up like 8+% here. If there's anything else that's up that looks really good, folks, type it in the chat board. I think one of us, I think Michael had mentioned Array just earlier, so we'll take a look at that in a bit. If there's anything else though from the gainer side, let me know. I'll just jump over to the loser side in between here. BW. Mark called this out earlier as a short when it, dropped off at first, but there was still seemingly a lot more room to go afterwards. So it called it out, I think, as it was on the way down to 6 and then just completely dropped off from that point. So, I'll tell you, this stock is tradable, shortable in TradeStation, my platform at least. Just double check if it's shortable for you. But, for right now, support off of 5. You would assume major support off of $5. We only have Shopify on our main list, actually, as of right now. So BW will join that, at least here in the meantime. Meta we'll put on our list, right? A little expensive, but obviously trading a ton of volume today. Really good volume on the order book for as expensive as it is. So, this is exactly what you would want to follow in terms of a short going into the market close. Actually, really quick, told you got a little time. I have this at least prepped up right now because I was helping Fausto out for his webinar tomorrow. So with that, Meta ended up dropping off. It was holding support off 100 here really well throughout the day. A couple of different bids that were filled, but with lower highs and the testing of support off 100, you got to expect it's going to break. And once it ended up just re-breaking fully through the iceberg here, ended up holding as resistance, dropped off beautifully. Has been a great short, but right now, Meta, Facebook, is on the way down to 98, testing a 263,000 share bid right there. So I would say that's pretty big in relation to even what we had at 100. Had 179,000 shares roughly off 100 from earlier. You also had a little bit more that was there, like you had 227K there. I mean, since 100, this is your next biggest level. 99, there was something, 98.50, but in terms of how much volume is on the order book at one sitting, this is definitely your next biggest level that's out there. After that, 97 you see there. So, keep your eyes on Meta on the short. Looks pretty strong on the way down. Can't do that for every stock that we go through, folks, but Meta I ended up having up just right there, so that was easy. Let's see what else we got here on the downside, though. I mean, hey, the Chinese EVs like XPEV, NIO, Li, all of them are dropping off big today. XPEV down over 9%, NIO down over 5%, I think. XPEV just, tradable. And they're down big. If they were near the lows, much like Meta is right now, then I'd be more inclined to put them on our watch list. I mean, great side list stocks. NIO seems to be the weakest out of these right now. It's down over 6.5% right now, just near the lows actually. So, out of any of them, I would be more inclined to put NIO on the watch list as a short. Drop down to 10. I'll tell you though, if the SPY ends up holding this trend line here, should it false break it, squeeze back up above it, then perhaps you get a dead cat bounce collectively throughout the market, and maybe NIO could hold that 10 and lead to a nice little push upward. That's always a thought. All right, folks, let me know if there's anything else that looks good. We got 4 stocks on our watch list. If you don't like expensive stocks, then that makes it 3. I always like to point that out, right? You don't want to let an expensive stock like Meta be a distraction to you if you're not as inclined to, trade a more expensive stock, and that's okay. But for right now, Meta just as a trade looks incredible as a short. Michael says Roblox, not big percentage gainer, but near high of the day. Well, at least take a look. Just for a more expensive stock, though, that's where I would say I want to see more volatility. Like Meta's more expensive, but that's like really giving you more bang for your buck, right? So, even to check out an AMD on the downside, not big percentage loser, but the chip sector has been really volatile and in a good way. Roblox we've traded oftentimes, and if it was looking sharper, then definitely that's where I felt like GM yesterday had the chance to make a stronger push if we ended up getting a pop up higher in the market, but obviously we did not necessarily get that, right? Ended up getting just more of a consolidated push, and GM just kind of held. Right now, if the market's dropping off, you want to follow some stocks that are moving with the market. Definitely weaker than anything like Meta. AMD, getting back to this, I mean, hey, it would be a good one to put on your watch list, right? I mean, very liquid on the way down to big iceberg support at 59. I think I'm selling myself on doing that. All right, so AMD will put on our watch list. I wasn't a fan of having so many expensive stocks on our watch list anyway from this morning. That included NVIDIA. So, if I'm comparing the two, AMD, NVIDIA, we'll go AMD. But otherwise, I want to keep it more contained with what most of us look to trade within, like 1 to 30 at least, or, 1 to 20 perhaps otherwise. So, a NEO, American Airlines, not really doing it for me here, just kind of slumping off. UAL actually up over 2% or up 2% right now with the market dropping today. So I guess holding strong as far as a potential swing. All right, let me just check out Benzinga Pro, folks. Then we'll just finish up here. So I don't really have much on the gainer side, as you can imagine. Even if you see views sneak up a little bit, I have no interest in that trade now. So pass on view. NRBO? Nah, it's too illiquid. Actually, I had one of us on YouTube just mention that right now. So NRBO is starting to squeeze back up a small amount, but it dropped off badly from the morning. Just there's no real volume out there. That's where I'll tell you, if our whole MO, if our whole catchphrase here is to follow the big money, follow the smart money, and you don't see any big money, any smart money out there, probably not best to trade it, right? And it's okay to think of it that way. We need to be very blunt and real with ourselves at times, right? That's where you hear me emphasize certain rules that we go through in class. All right. I don't see much else even on the loser side here for Benzinga Pro. So I'll tell you, folks, I think that'll just about wrap things up. I guess we'll check out actually Array. I forgot about that from Michael from just before. It's up over 5%. Nice day for Array today, at least. Ended up just dropping off now. Yeah, I mean, that could be a good sideless stock. I think, folks, we're going to call it. We have about 5 stocks in total, though, to work with, more on the downside than anything. But, that's where we'll be diligent with scanning from this point. Don't look to force any call outs out there. Don't, call out a stock if it's flat, not really doing anything. But scan, be very diligent with scanning. And, hey, if there's a stock that is making that move up that you find to be pretty attractive, then call it out. Then let us know at that point. I'm sure there will be something over the next 70 minutes that we'll look to call out, whether it's off of news or not. I'm sure that we'll be able to catch a nice pop taking us into the market close. All right, so for all of us on Facebook Live and YouTube, folks, if you have any other questions, feel more than free to send it over through email. I always like to post my email address here at the end of these streams. Josh@ctutrading.com is my email. If you're interested in joining our live trading room, just go right down to the link on the blue banner below, normally yellow. I got to make that yellow there next time, but normally I'll say go right down to the link on the blue banner below right there, the stream, to get yourself started. For all of us there inside the live trading room right now, Leda, Grant, Michael, Mark, etc., I look forward to chatting with you folks coming up here in the next hour. Take care.
Become a Cyber Group member today. Just click the link below and receive all these amazing products and a world of knowledge for just $9. Do it today.